Hello, and welcome to Weavy's Future of Work interview series. My name is Lydia Nickel, and I am the CMO of Weavy, and I'm joined today by Brad Hawks. He is the VP of Marketing at Pickit, which is the world's simplest DAM system. So thank you, Brad, for joining us today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great. So why don't we just start off by, you introducing yourself a little bit, describing what you do and what Pickit does.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Brad Hawks. I'm originally Australian and back in Australia, but spent 20 years in Europe working with various startups and always worked with words. Originally, actually a translator and copywriter, and then that led me down sort of the marketing path. And also spent a long time working with sort of presentations. So everything from messaging to copy on slides to slide design to actual delivery, both myself and for clients. So I've been consulting in the marketing kind of field for 10, 15 years, and then spent the last 5 years working for Pickit. As you said, the world's simplest DAM system.
Yes. And could you describe a little bit more about what makes Pickit the world's simplest DAM system?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of DAM systems that have a lot of features and functionality that target maybe the admins and the owners, the people that are managing the content, but they're not always super user-friendly and intuitive for the end user who maybe just wants to get access to something inside PowerPoint, or maybe they just need to surface some company logos, for a Word doc or for an email or whatever it is. So we've basically built something that's very user-centric. It's actually, our integrations and add-ins for example, Microsoft 365 are actually the most installed Office add-ins in the world. And often sort of win awards for things like People's Choice or user interface or things like that. So we've really tried to focus on building something that's user-centric.
Great. Well, I think, one of the reasons I wanted to have you come on and talk with us about the future of work today is, certainly in today's in working environment and what we'll see maybe continue into the future is just this concept of, needing repositories for more, assets or information or data or whatever it is for teams, who are potentially distributed or, maybe working from home for a long time. Need a platform where they can really collaborate around, whether they're physically present with each other or not.
Sure.
So I think, I think you're someone that could have a potentially interesting perspective on the topic of the future of work. So I think if we just, jump right into the questions that I have for you is, what is your perspective about the shift to fully remote teams? And, how does that affect the demand for your product? And you as the VP of Marketing, has that changed anything about your strategy with your product?
Yeah, good questions. The first part of that, we've been working remotely at Pickit from the start, so 7, 8 years. We've had 2 co-founders on either side of the Atlantic Ocean, and we've had people at our peak, I think 10 time zones. Now we're in 7 time zones currently, spanning about 19 hours. So we've got a lot of firsthand experience with remote work. I've been remote for my 5 years at Pickit, and long before COVID. So we kind of felt like we were well positioned, both in terms of our product and our experience, to speak to it. But what I've seen is I think all this was inevitable. It was going to happen, but it was probably going to take 10 years. And instead it took 10 days. Everybody was just locked down and it's like it's going to happen. And all the early adopters were obviously like, hey, we've been doing this for ages, but a lot of people hate change, right? And it's easy to stay comfortable. A lot of people still focus a lot, I think, on the bums on seats approach, as I like to call it. If somebody's sitting at their desk in their cubicle, then they're working, which is obviously rubbish. But so yeah, we've really felt like in terms of our messaging, we're already sort of a B2B SaaS, cloud service there's a lot of remote friendly aspects already, but what we've tried to do is just highlight in all of our marketing, these are the wins for remote workers. These are the ways that having a central source for everything, but also then making that accessible and distributing it in all the different applications and programs where people are working just makes it super, super simple, and saves a lot of that, unnecessary communication.
Sure. And I guess, as you mentioned, your own organization has kind of been remote from the start. So, how would you say you guys are coping with vast distribution across multiple time zones? What kind of advice after, as being seasoned remote workers, what can you say to your customers who are potentially navigating this for the first time?
Well, I was in Sweden till a year ago, and I would say my first bit of advice is don't move to Australia because like all the other time zones work. But getting something where, my boss is in Seattle, 19 hours behind me, and then my team is in Spain and Sweden, 10 hours behind me. And it's just, that's, I think, Australia and our team in Japan, they've really kind of thrown a bit of a, stick in the spokes. But no, jokes aside, I mean, what we've tried to do is make sure there's always overlap every day, 2 to 3 hours at least. Our CEO actually gets up at 4 a.m., so he overlaps nearly his whole day with the majority of the team, and that's just how he's chosen to tackle it. But for me, I work a shift in the morning, I work a shift during the day when my kids are in school, and then I work a shift when they're in bed. And there's pros and cons. It means I get some daylight hours to go and train, go for a walk, do things that actually boost my creativity and help me come back with fresh eyes. So even though I'm doing 3 shifts a day, sometimes 4, I'm feeling maybe fresher than I would if I'm just sitting 8 hours in a cubicle. So we try to overlap 2 to 3 hours. We try to, a few things I would say is, don't make decisions if somebody in another time zone is still asleep and hasn't had a chance to weigh in on that decision. Give it 24 hours. Just be a bit disciplined with those sorts of things. Have daily syncs where it's maybe just a 5-10 minute touch base. Make sure that you pass the mic around in virtual meetings. I think some people have a tendency to hijack meetings while others kind of disappear into the background, even in a live setting. And the quiet ones, in the boardroom or the office at work, they're going to be even quieter, maybe online. So, I think asking these sort of vague questions like, does anybody else have anything to add? No, okay, I'll move on. I don't think that works. I think you need to address specific people, mention them by name, things like that. So those are just like little things that we do, trying to respect status messages on Slack or Teams or whatever. If somebody's actually offline, respecting that, just, those sorts of things. But to be honest, you don't need to overlap, 8 hours a day with your team. If you're organized, 2 or 3 hours is plenty.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you're aware as well, but Weevy's marketing team, I'm located in Sweden, and I have a team member on East Coast US and West Coast US. So we've got that 9-hour time difference as well. And just as you say, I think there's also some, there are some perks to that, right? Because if they're working on something that needs approval, I wake up and it's there for me, ready. You know what I mean? So I think if you can just see opportunities rather as the challenges, I think it can be something really positive for a lot of companies.
Definitely. Yeah, I think communication is always important in any team, but I think it's even more important now, and clarity around deadlines and communication. I think that's what I'm getting at too, with sort of making sure everybody gets a voice in meetings, or those other comments I made about not pushing decisions too fast, things like that. But yeah, if you're clear and you communicate, I think it's actually, in a lot of cases, you're working with happier people who actually can enjoy the perks, maybe not be sitting in rush hour traffic, twice a day, or all those sorts of things. So
Absolutely. I mean, I know my team member in LA, he is
He's
loving not
loving
having to
life.
be
Yeah,
in
yeah,
traffic. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah. I'm feeling
exactly.
that one. Yeah.
Which I mean, actually, I think that kind of lends nicely to my next question. About how can we, better facilitate these environments, these working environments and cultures of collaboration and autonomy at the same time, right? Because it does
Mm,
require a lot of personal accountability. How do you,
mm.
especially as a leader, navigating this, working climate
Yeah.
potentially for the first time, how do you, like, hold your team accountable, ensure people are doing the right things, but are not getting so micromanagey? I think that becomes even
Mm.
more of a struggle sometimes.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I don't feel like I have like a one liner,
Sure.
but there's several things that we try and do. We try to actually respect the need for sort of deep work and focus time for production, as well as trying to get people to respect the recurring meetings and things that we have. Blocking windows actually where you only book meetings in a certain um, 3-hour window or something, that can be a way to avoid chopping people's days up, especially when you're not thinking about what time zone they're in, or whether they're actually picking up kids and doing it on the phone at the same time, or those sorts of
Mm.
things. So we try to create space for both deep work and sort of individual work, and then have pretty structured sort of meeting times and everything. That's one way. I think another way is to actually try to trust people, even more perhaps now that they're at home. I think a lot of managers probably worried people would be slacking off, and nobody's sort of looking over their shoulder, and they're probably just in their pajamas getting lazy and doing random stuff at the house. But a lot of studies I've seen have showed that actually shown that people are online more, they're working
Mhm.
more. Some people are actually really feeling the pressure and the stress. Like if I don't answer straight away to the Slack
Mm.
message, they'll think I'm not working,
Mm.
when they may have already done 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours. Or so I think it's trying to build a culture where you honor people's time off and free time and autonomy to kind of run their schedule by you, of course, but decide over their schedule to a degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, we try to. I don't know if there's anything helpful in there, but we try to sort of divide it, split it between these are the things we require you to be part of, and then this is the time we actually want you to be working on your own stuff, and we'll try not to encroach on that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sure.
yeah,
I think
I
a
don't
lot
know.
of it comes down to, I feel like a lot of it comes down to as well of like managing expectations, right? If leadership and management can,
Sure.
set the expectations and then just ensure that, their staff and everybody is working together to meet those expectations. And if not, communication is happening, right? About,
Yeah, exactly.
oh, I can't get this deliverable done. But if you're, especially in a team where you're collaborating around certain projects, you can kind of have each other's back or fill in gaps where need be. But it
Yeah.
really, as you mentioned before, it takes a little bit extra communication, especially when teams are distributed.
Yeah, I think that's the key. We have a couple of sort of non-mandatory check-ins or syncs as well available if people kind of feel like they need to communicate a little bit more. There's some sort of set times each week where whoever wants to can log on. So there's meetings where everybody's required to be there and report on things. We have a weekly sync where the whole company needs to be at that meeting. For me, it's 11 p.m. or midnight or 1 in the morning or whatever, but that's the one that you have to be at. But then there's
Mhm.
these times too where, some of our guys will sometimes just jump into a Zoom room together and sit and work and have some music on, or just
Mhm.
things like that too, to touch base and make sure that there's still some more informal communication as well as the formal stuff. And that's often where
Mhm.
people will let you know if they're feeling stressed out or if they're feeling
Mhm.
overwhelmed or if they need, you know, we let them sort of, if they need to hand something over to somebody else or whatever, all that sort of stuff tends to happen in those meetings. So,
Mhm.
yeah, but we've been trying all kinds of things, and it took a while to get to that stage where we feel like we've got a good, comfortable system that works for us.
Yeah, sure. And I think that is, maybe part of the journey, right? It's figuring out what works for your team specifically, because there's not, one size fits all or a perfect recipe for how to do this.
Unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not. Yeah. Yeah. But I think one thing that you kind of touched upon, is maybe the importance or a greater importance now, or the role that tools and technology, are
Mm,
playing as well. You said, a Zoom room or informal communication channels versus formal communication channels. And I think, do you have any thoughts actually on how businesses can maybe ensure that they're equipping their teams correctly, for
mm.
collaboration, communication, distributed teams, remote work, these kinds of things?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much out there, so many new tools all the time, and both you and I work for companies that provide such tools. So we're obviously big, supporters of finding the right technology. But having said that, I think both Weavy and Pickit have an approach where we want you to pick the right tool for you, not just sort of say this is for everybody, and do that in such a way. So I mean, at Pickett, I remember when we were starting with sort of trying to manage some of our project management and planning, and I think we tried Trello and Asana and
Mhm.
Monday and Planner, and like all in the space of
Mhm.
3 or 4 months. At one point, I think we had 2 or 3 of them overlapping. And you always have these people at every company who, oh, there's a new tool out, or have you seen this new app, or this, and they kind of pushing for everyone to switch. Or so what we've tried to do is kind of use those early adopters and those sort of nerdier people who love to try new stuff, get them to do that. But also, once we make a decision to run with something, we'll tend to run with it for a good amount of time now, rather than sort of jumping around. I think that's one big learning for us, is the time it takes actually to switch and onboard people and set up new accounts and things like that. So try stuff out, find what you like, and then maybe make a decision to stick with that
Mhm.
for a decent period of time. The other thing that's really helped us is kind of consolidating things. So if there's we were using MailChimp for some emails, and then we were using WordPress for a website, and then we were using HubSpot for something else to CRM or whatever, and then it's like, hang on, we can do all of this in HubSpot. So
Right.
let's do that. It might not be quite as good in this area or that area, but having everything under one roof, and that's kind of what Pickit does too. We try to sort of take, you can source stuff from your Dropbox business folders, and you can source stuff from your Getty Images account, and you can source stuff from all kinds of places, push it all out to the different places where people are working, but you have one central hub where you have
Mhm.
all that content, whether it's templates or marketing material, logos, images, all those sorts of things. So trying to consolidate. So
Yep.
yeah, that's my my advice is kind of, if you can, have things under one roof and make measured decisions, try things out, be curious, but then don't jump around too often, because that,
Sure.
I think, you just kill productivity when you do that too much.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Weavy certainly has that perspective as well, right? When we're trying to, enable apps to add contextual collaboration so that people can stay within an app and work together around
Yeah,
something specific rather than
yeah,
having to, jump around on different platforms just to communicate about one thing. So,
yeah.
yeah, definitely on board with that for sure. So just to wrap up here, final question. This is the $1 million question. So, in your opinion, what does the future of work look like?
Yeah, good question. I relocated from Stockholm to Australia and live in a smaller city now. 10 minutes from the beach, 10 minutes from the bush. I walk my kids to school. I have this quite different lifestyle, and all of that was like, we moved here a month before COVID, so we had no
Mm,
idea. But I think what I'm seeing is that shift. People are actually here. Sydney and Melbourne, that used to be the hotspots and the places to be, are now empty. People
Mhm.
are, moving to places. As long as there's broadband, it's like, hey,
Yep.
I could be living anywhere. And I think that's just going to keep increasing. I think we'll see actually, people not just working remotely, but moving to more remote places to
Mhm.
live, and maybe slow down certain aspects of their
Yeah.
lifestyle, maybe become more local in certain ways at the same time as working globally, with the help of tech. So I think,
Right.
this more fluid sort of lifestyle where, um, it used to be you would build sort of your life and your location around your work, and now
Work.
you can
Yeah.
build your work around your life
Mhm.
and your location.
Right.
I think that's the big change. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's see.
Let's see. Yeah. Time will tell, I guess.
Mm,
But thank you so much for joining us today. Really insightful, and appreciate you being here. So
you're
thank you
welcome.
and have a great day.
Thank you.